Everyone in Westminster is celebrating the new ONS figures showing that net migration has plummeted to 171,000. They're feeling so proud of themselves that the system is finally working, but what they are completely missing is the real tragedy, okay? Net migration is not falling because the UK is suddenly thriving. It's not falling because Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood have finally got their act together and are able to deport the small boat arrivals, are able to deport those who are failing to integrate in the country, those who claim benefits, those who refuse to speak English. No, that is not what is happening. Net migration is falling because we have built a hostile environment, not for the illegal migrants or the legal migrants who refuse to integrate, but also because of the fact that we have built a hostile environment for the people who we actually need to stay in the country. We have built a hostile environment for those native Brits, those Brits who are actually able to contribute to the country. No, we want them gone. The government want them gone. The people that we actually need are staging a mass exodus. Net migration of British nationals is over negative 100,000. So that means that British citizens are packing their bags and emigrating, moving out, and the vast majority of them are highly skilled, highly motivated, under 35-year-olds. Now, this is not just a random coincidence, okay? These people are not leaving because they suddenly hate the country. This is actually completely rational. It's rational economic flight from a state that aggressively punishes productivity. So we have a crushing tax burden. We have artificial minimum wage hikes that just destroy entry-level careers completely. And we also have the newly active Renters' Rights Act that this Labour government have been banging on about as some kind of achievement that is actually completely suffocating the housing supply and ensuring that my generation are probably not going to be able to buy a house in the near future, if ever. Actually, the state is just trapping my generation completely. We are being squeezed from every single angle by central planners who think that prosperity just magically comes from the government. And what do we get in return for giving up our futures so that we can pay for the triple lock for millionaire pensioners? I live in London, literally one of the most heavily surveyed cities in the world, and obviously, as you can see, the most surveyed city in Europe by a very, very wide margin. There are cameras on every single corner tracking law-abiding citizens. If you went to the Unite the Kingdom rally, it was the first time that live facial recognition technology was being used at a protest. Yet, when my own laptop was stolen recently, the police could barely be bothered to look. They just closed the case almost instantly with an automated email, and this is completely normal. Think about the social contract here, okay? If the state forces you to hand over half of your income via taxes and over-regulates your career basically out of existence, and then completely fails to protect your basic private property, leaving is just common sense. The solution to this brain drain, and yes, this is a brain drain, isn't more government intervention to just save us, right? The solution is for the government to screw off, liberalise our markets, and let young Brits actually build a life here. Let's talk about why you can't afford a place to live. Young professionals in London are handing over around 50% of their take-home pay directly to landlords. Why? Because our planning laws make housing supply completely inelastic. So the government's genius response was the Renters' Rights Act, which officially kicked in on May the 1st. So what that did was it banned fixed-term tenancies and Section 21 notices, claiming it protects tenants. But basic economics tells you exactly what happens next. It adds massive regulatory risk for property owners. So landlords are essentially selling up in droves, shrinking the rental market and driving rents even higher for the rest of us. You don't lower rents by passing laws that are essentially bullying landlords, because that's what this is. This is just bullying landlords. You lower rents by building more houses and deporting people. We need to stop trying to regulate landlords and start actually deregulating the land. What we need to do is completely overhaul the 1947 Town and Country Planning Act, strip away NIMBY veto powers, and greenlight massive private sector development onto the grey belt. We just need to build more and deport more people. Next up is the job market. So the government just pushed the national living wage up to £12.71 an hour. It sounds absolutely wonderful on some kind of campaign poster, but in reality, it has caused massive, what we call wage compression. So small businesses and startups cannot absorb these costs for unproven talent, because that's what we are. You know, you graduate out of university, they don't know how good you are. So what do? They cut graduate schemes, axe internships, stop entry-level training completely. By forcing a high price on youth labour, the government has essentially chopped off the bottom rungs of the career ladder. The minimum wage, what it is actually, is a trap that prices unproven young people out of the workforce. What we actually need to do is reinvent the early career job market by removing price floors for workers under 25 at least. Okay, let young people negotiate their own value based on their long-term potential. If a business can afford to take a gamble on a young person, they will invest in training them. Experience is worth infinitely more than some kind of state-mandated wage that just leaves you unemployed. Because the youth unemployment crisis is absolutely existential, okay? Like, young people are unable to find jobs, and that's why they are leaving. Then there's the money you actually manage to earn if you actually manage to get a job. The UK tax burden is hitting a historic post-war high of 38.5% of GDP. But the real killer for Zoomers is called fiscal drag. So because tax thresholds have been frozen while inflation soared, entry-level professionals are being dragged into the 40% tax bracket before they can even afford to move out of their parents' house or get married or do anything with their lives. So the state is clawing back your wealth before you can even establish some kind of financial independence. So the solution is actually really easy. Unfreeze and raise personal allowance and higher rate thresholds to match real-world inflation. Let young professionals keep their own capital so they can invest it in their own businesses, in their own houses, in their own future, rather than watching them flee to low-tax havens like Dubai or the USA. Finally, let's have a look at public safety. As I mentioned, we have millions of CCTV cameras tracking basically our every move, yet phone snatches and tech theft and burglaries have just been effectively decriminalised. The police have just turned into a glorified administrative service. I mean, we pay and get no service. The state needs to return to its primary duty: protecting individual safety and private property. That's the whole point of the state. Otherwise, why on earth do we have a government? We need to defund the bloated state bureaucracies, the quangos, that spend their time monitoring speech online or managing identity politics, and redirect those resources to frontline policing that actively deterrs property crime. We are paying historically high taxes for a surveillance state that tracks our every move but won't even investigate a stolen laptop. If the state wants us to stay and wants us to pay taxes, it needs to fulfill its basic contract: protect our property and clear criminals off our streets. Now, some people are going to be asking, if we cut taxes and deregulate, won't our public services collapse even further? How will we fund the NHS? Let me tell you something. High taxes and overregulation are exactly what is causing the collapse. We are actively driving away the 136,000 or whatever highly productive British nationals who actually generate the wealth required to fund this entire system. You can't just increase taxes and hope that the country falls into prosperity. And you can't fund public services with an empty treasury because your best minds have moved to Australia. If you want sustainable funding for anything in this country, you have to create a dynamic free market economy that makes people actually want to stay and work and invest in their lives here.